So yes, I'm giving this year's update for the natural history study and the patient registry. So to give you a little bit of background on the patient registry and the natural history study, it's been online since 2017 collecting data. It's a collaboration with the NORD I Am Rare registry program. We include survey questions and response selections that are specific to desmoid tumor, including the goddess questions and that patient-reported outcomes tool. The natural history study collects patient and caregiver survey responses and allows transition from caregiver to self at 18. And as of last month, there have been 1,735 participants. There have been 14 publications since 2019, and we will have a 15th publication later this month titled The Impact of Desmoid Tumors, Insights from the Desmoid Tumor Research Foundation Natural History Study 2017 to 2023. This is a look at what our dashboard looks like. And as you can see circled in red, our self-participant enrollment at 1,626 and our caregiver or other participant enrollment at 109. Okay, so a couple of other updates in what we have planned for the upcoming months. We are transitioning to a 2.0 platform with NORD early next year. It'll be more user-friendly. It'll reduce the number of clicks that you need to get to complete your survey, and it'll be mobile-friendly. We plan to translate the platform into Spanish and French. Hopefully that will bring us a wider world participation ex-US, and we're also partnering to partner with other patient advocacy groups and look forward to those opportunities. In addition, we plan to use the ICD-10 code tracking to identify patient centers and also identify oncologists in those centers and provide our DTRF support and our materials to those doctors and the patients. And so next I'll turn into, okay, let's show the data. I'll be looking at the treatment data, what that landscape looks like, as well as the quality of life data. This was presented earlier this year at ESMO and is a collaboration with SpringWorks Therapeutics. So we'll start with what the patients look like. For this analysis, there were 367 participants in August of 2023 that were included. 73% were from the US. 68% reported currently having a tumor, and 50% reported having a tumor less than 5 years, and 44% reported having a tumor greater than 6. So as we looked at the medical management of the tumors, they were vast and varied. 76% reported receiving a systemic therapy after diagnosis. 40% reported using anti-inflammatory meds. 32 reported being treated with a TKI, and 31 reported being treated with chemo. And if we look at the treatment sequencing, first, second, third line, we had surgery reported, chemo, radiation, cryo, and HIFU. 33% reported receiving multiple treatments, surgery being the most prevalent first-line treatment, and chemotherapy was the most prevalent second and third-line treatment. So if we look at the surgical outcomes, 43% of the participants had surgical treatment, whether it's first or second or third line. Of those that had surgery, 63% 64% of these patients reported continued growth or recurrence, and that's shown in the darker bars or darker columns there. And the trends were in the surgical outcomes were similar across the tumor locations shown here. Next, we looked at the tumor monitoring frequency by tumor status. Goes to say that patients with a current tumor report being monitored at a greater frequency, at least every 6 months, compared to those with no tumor. And the green columns are monitoring every 3 months, and the pink being every 6 months. We also did see that there was no difference in the monitoring frequency for those participants with FAP or genetic mutation. So again, we saw that the treatment landscape and the sequencing of the treatments is variable and indicates an absence of standard of care. And substantial supportive care was reported with tumor recurrence and growth and monitoring, suggesting that there is an unmet medical need in the management of patients, even given the variety of treatment options. Next, I'll move into the quality of life. So we'll start with the symptom scores. And if you look at these columns, we show a current tumor in a solid bar, and the dotted column is no current tumor. So the mean total symptom score is shown on the left for those with the tumor and without. And then we also look into the symptoms pain, extra-abdominal symptoms, and intra-abdominal symptoms. And these scores are on a from 0 to 10 scale. And as you saw, all participants, even with or without a current tumor, reported increased symptoms. If you combine them, that's a mean total score of 4.1. Higher scores were reported for those with a current tumor across all symptoms. So we take a look at the impact scores. Again, we have the solid columns for with tumor and dotted without. The impact scores were measured on a scale of from 0 to 4, 0 being none of the time, 4 being all of the time. And so we can see here for pain, dull pain, shooting pain, fatigue, swelling, difficulty moving around the body areas near the tumor, and abdominal pain. We saw that higher scores were seen in those with a current tumor as compared to no tumor. Participants reported difficulty doing moderate and vigorous activities, and they report difficulty moving in areas near the tumor and getting comfortable in bed. We also took a look at the symptom and impact scores by tumor location. And you can see here that the total symptom scores for, let's see, joint and extremity were the highest at 4.9. But if you look at the emotional impact domain, they kind of flatten out. So we did see that participants with tumors in joints or extremities report significantly worse total symptoms, including physical functioning and pain as compared to other tumor locations. And again, this analysis shows that negative impact on patient lives, more so for the patients with a current tumor. Patients reported fear of tumor recurrence or growth in addition to feeling frustrated with their situation. Patient care should include the emotional impact of having these tumors. And finally, like some of the takeaways we had were that The reported treatments and the sequence of treatments for desmoid tumor vary. The reported symptoms and impacts of having a desmoid tumor are substantial, including those emotional aspects, which need to be taken into consideration when managing desmoid tumor patients. And in general, there is a lack of standard of care in the treatment of desmoid tumor patients. I want to acknowledge and thank everyone here and not here. um, Thank you.
Question?
Yes, so that was very instructive. A question that I have, and I apologize if I missed it, is do you have an idea of how long it takes for patients to be treated? Now that we are shifting to active surveillance, do we have an idea of how long it takes for patients between diagnosis and the onset of treatment?
We do collect that information, and I do believe we have looked at it before. So the answer is yes, but now with the new guidances, it might be a good thing to look at moving forward, see if that changes. Okay? No.
It takes about 6 months on average for patients to have a diagnosis. Since we've started looking at this data, there has been a shift, right, between patients who report having surgery as their first treatment and active surveillance being incorporated into more guidelines. We are in discussion with the health economics and outcomes group at SpringWorks about looking at before and after guideline changes for when active surveillance becomes more prevalent versus surgery or systemic therapy. So,
Other question?
From Japan, I do the educational activity for the tertiary sarcoma center, not to do the surgery, except the pulmonary wall. But I'm surprised that results, many patients receive the surgery other than pulmonary wall. Why the educational activity is not being done in many institutions? In Japan, if I know that institutions still doing surgery, I directly you read the consensus paperwork, so they quit the surgery. So how do you think that still there are many different patients other than abdominal wall receive surgery, depending on based on your results?
Yeah, and I again was looking at your presentation and no surgery, and so I was kind of curious why that would be such a hard line as well. I don't know. I think I would defer it to you.
May be able to provide some insight. In the United States, the vast majority of patients who present with desmoid tumors do not present to a cancer center. They present to primarily like a local physician. In the orthopedic world, a lot of them present to a general orthopedist who may never have heard about it. And so they think it's like a lipoma or something, and they'll go ahead, they do a local surgery. I will tell you something that's been disappointing. So a group of us put in, so we have these exams, like you get board exams to be able to sit for your boards. Beforehand, when you're residents, we have a thing called the in-training exam the residents take each year. And we put several years in a row, we put in a question, which was a desmoid tumor, histology of a desmoid tumor, showed it, and said, what's the right first-line treatment? A, B, C, D, E. And the answer was watchful waiting, for first-line treatment. And they never used the question because most people wrote down surgical resection. So I think we have a block because most of the patients are seen by somebody who doesn't know what a desmoid is. And I think it's different maybe in different countries, but in the United States, most of them are seen by general practitioners who don't even know what it is.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I think the registry too are for patients enroll and then they put their part of their, like, I don't know how prospective, but I guess, but when they enroll, they could have had surgery as frontline years ago, right? And then put that, so that registry is historical as well. So I think the point is that it would be interesting to look at it post the newer guidelines coming out of people registering who maybe were not initially had surgery to see if there's a shift. That's probably why it's so high.
Yeah, and the other thing about the data from the study is that we have up to 50% of the patients have putative misdiagnosis initially. So they have some putative diagnosis, they go through a surgical resection, and then they have confirmation that it's a desmoid tumor. And then they move forward from there. Because to Ben's point, they're not seeing specialists initially, they're seeing general surgeons in community hospitals.
We presented the consensus data at the Pediatric Orthopedic Society and the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgery to try and get more generalized, like I presented on all our behalves, to try and get more generalized information out about it. But I do think that's an issue it's not just this in the United States, it's all musculoskeletal tumors problem.
Related question, the surgical outcomes about this abdominal wall. The recurrence rate is very low, I believe, around 10% or something. But the data, based on the data, even abdominal wall, recurrence rate is very high. I cannot believe that.
Yeah, no, it is difficult. Like Kelly said, sometimes that initial surgery is just finding out what it is or what it was. And so I think it is something that's interesting to look at and is a good question. And thank you.
We have one more question if you want, Bill. Do you want one more question?
There are some socioeconomic or demographic or zip code blind spots in the patient cohort that's already data. That's part of the reason for probably translation, et cetera. Have you done an assessment of what those blind spots are and brainstorm ways to kind of fill it with them?
I don't know, Kelly, if you want to go ahead. I'm not sure what you mean by a blind spot.
So we definitely have patient selection issues because the people who are participating in the study are very tech savvy, right? They know about the study, they're in tune with the DTRF. What we're going to be doing with the IDC-10 code information is identifying pockets of the US where patients are being seen and sending marketing information to those clinicians specifically. We should be able to broaden out the ethnicity, race, ages of our patient population included by doing this. By including French and Spanish, obviously, we're going to be able to hit a broader audience of the world, particularly Europe, as we await an FDA or EU approval for NIRO. I think that will be very important to have some of that data for the EU countries. But yes, we're trying different tactics If you have any other ideas, please let me know, but the IDC 10 code is gonna be critical for finding where patients are now.
Any of the Nordic registries practice issue, best practice.
No, but having this specific code for desmoid tumor is really helping, yes.
Yes, that's a generalized problem with not having a uniform healthcare system. Places like Ontario, where they have a single system, you can get that information easier. Well, let's move on. That's great.
Anyway.
Lots of good discussion.
Thank you. Thank you.